We will call to order the regular monthly meeting of the City of Helotes Planning and Zoning Commission. It is May the 2nd, 2017 at 7:01. Ask our secretary to please call the roll.
Joe Edmond. Ron Haza. Greg Michelle.
Here.
Mike McLaughlin. Richard Hawk.
Here.
Mario Rios.
Here.
Jeff Wade. Here. Jason Whiteman.
Here.
And we have from council, Paul Fredericks and Alex Blue and Rick Schroeder, City Administrator. And we will start tonight with a public hearing, which is to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request by Visa Wash, doing business as the Wash Tub, for approval of a specific city council approved use permit for a full-service car wash to be located on a 1.33 acre lot described as Lot 3, Block 2, within the Bandera Oaks subdivision located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road and Cedar Trail, formerly addressed as 12440. We'll open the public hearing at 7:03. Are there individuals here tonight who wish to speak on the matter? One more time, is there anyone here who'd care to speak? If not, we shall close the public hearing. Are there any citizens to be heard, Rick? Great. Okay, item 5 is a discussion and action on the minutes from the Planning and Zoning meeting, April 4, 2017. You should have received a copy of the minutes. If there are any changes or edits, please call those to our attention. Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes be approved as presented.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes as submitted for the April 4, 2017 meeting, signal aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. There we go. Okay, item 6 tonight is discussion and action on a request by Visa Wash, doing business as the Wash Tub, for approval of a specific city council approved use permit for a full service car wash to be located on a 1.33 acre lot of land, Lot 3, Block 2, Bandera Oaks subdivision, generally located near the intersection of Bandera Road and Cedar Trail. I have to ask the city administrator to present this. Are there folks representing the property here tonight?
Yes.
You guys, all right. If we have questions, we'll, as we might. Rick, do you want to present?
Yes, sir.
And if I could actually just preempt it with a question, why is the address possibly changing?
Say that again,
So
please.
the address in the agendas suggests that it is going to be changed from 12440, or is that?
12440 is the Bexar County Appraisal District address for that property prior to it being subdivided within the plat. I believe the last time y'all were here, y'all approved the plat for this development, and so it's kind of in that weird stage of pre-plat, post-plat, and so we're required to go by Bexar County Appraisal District addressing. The lot that is the vast majority, if not all of this tract of land or the wash tub that's going on this would be located currently on 12440 Bandera Road.
Thank you.
I have very few comments on this item, Chair. One of the big issues that we looked at was, number one, whether it was allowed in B3 overlay. As was included within your packet, B3 overlay does allow a full-service car wash facility with a specific city council use approval permit. And so it has to go through the regular zoning process to both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council. Letters were mailed not to just those that were within the lot as subdivided, but rather the lot as it was originally configured, if you will. So if we had not done it that way, then the individuals behind this development within Cedar Springs would not have been notified because they would have been outside of the 200 feet. So we included it as originally prior to its being subdivided. The other item that I wanted to look at when I was reviewing this was what was the distance between the back of this lot and the rear of Cedar Springs. At a minimum, it's between 540 and 550 linear feet from the rear property line of, I believe, Lot 3, Block 2, to the adjacent subdivision in the rear, which is Cedar Springs. For some time, staff has been attempting to bring in a full-service car wash facility in the city through various trade conferences that we go to, because there frankly isn't one in the vicinity of Helotes. Yes, there is one further down, I believe in Leon Valley, on Bandera Road, but all the ones that are around Helotes tend to be, if not completely self-service, either where you can go through a car wash facility, but yet you still have to get out and vacuum your own vehicle and dry it down and things of that sort. So we don't have a full-service car wash facility in or near the city. The other thing that we were looking at is we wanted to bring in a nice full-service car wash facility, if you will. And I'm sure all of y'all have been to Wash Tubs. They have the retail center inside, and they generally have a nice aesthetic to them, and it's a quality company that's been around for some time. And so tonight, I am recommending that to the commission, and I will be recommending to the council, that they approve the zoning request for the specific use permit within the B3 overlay. The subsequent item gets into the building aesthetics. I think that what will be the property owner, VisiWash, or the Wash Tub, has done a very good job of trying to comply with our design standards, but yet keeping their existing format of building intact. We've all seen the sort of barn facility. Many times those are red, and we've seen the adjacent retail facility with covered porches in the front. This is including rock or limestone rock around all four sides of the building, and of course, it does have a...
If I could, sorry to interrupt you, can we hold off on that part of the discussion until we get through item 6 first?
Yes, but I was just using that as an example of why staff feels comfortable recommending approval of this item as presented.
Thank you. Can you also call up, I think it'd be helpful to see, it wasn't, yeah, it is with the packet, the current, but also the former pre-subdivided lot.
This is Lot 3, Block 2. This is where the proposed wash tub facility would be located. Prior to this,
I don't know if you have it.
normally I include the Bear County appraisal. I don't think I included the Bear
But
County
you could probably use
appraisal.
that previous one to trace it.
Yeah, but essentially, prior to this amendment, this lot would have gone for somewhere around here, straight back. This is was three independent lots going from Bandera Road to the rear of Cedar Springs. So they're very long, very narrow lots, but extremely long.
And if I recall correctly from the discussion last month, that larger lot that extends all the way back to Cedar Spring it's of course still within the overlay, but it is zoned for appropriate development within that overlay.
Are you
area.
referring, sir, to this lot back
Yeah.
here?
Yes.
That lot, as it will be developed, will be a detention area, a natural detention area, and some of their tree preservation is
Got it.
back in that area as well.
Okay. So let's have the discussion now, and we do have a representative here if we have questions regarding not the conceptual design, which will come up next, but the recommendation to council on the specific use permit. And again, as city administrator clearly explained, this is within the overlay, and so it is a permitted use with council approval. It's not an automatic. So are there comments, questions? Open the floor.
Just a question, I believe you may have answered this, but to confirm that all the adjacent lots to this proposed property are within the B3 district or zone B3 overlay?
I would need to pull up the
that's true.
city count or the.
You said
zoning map.
adjacent lots?
Yes.
I know the ones to the left are.
Well,
I-
obviously, it fronts on Bandera, so that doesn't count, but there's a lot, immediately to the.
Right of
I
it?
guess would be the east, southeast, and west, northwest, and almost due north. So I think those were part of the original replat, so presumably they'll be zoned the same.
Yes, all of those are B3 overlay.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I understood this to be roughly 500 linear feet.
Up a little bit.
Be roughly 500 linear feet from the nearest home.
From the rear of the development to Cedar Springs residences,
Yes, from the rear of the property line for Lot 3, Block 2.
Right.
The shortest route is just to go straight up, and it's approximately 540 feet, 540 to 550 feet. If you go this way, it's longer than that.
But when you look to the right of it, that one piece of property there, that's where you say you're going to have a detention.
This area right here is reserved right now for a detention area, it's natural space, and some of their tree preservation is in this area as well.
So that would kind of mitigate any sound through there.
It should, well, not only the distance, but yes, the trees and the green space should mitigate the sound coming from the wash tub.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I have a question to Rick. I'm trying to picture the location. I have a general idea, but what's around there? What's next to it? And how many entries and exits are out of that facility?
There will only be one entry and exit out of the 3 lots, which is the common development. There may be, and I don't know if they're still working on this, cross-access easements here to go into into the adjacent lots. But there will be only one main entrance into this development.
Looks like, from the site plan, so this is Bandera Road, looks like they just drive.
This is right here.
What's it near? What business is it near?
This is self-storage.
Is there another car wash next to it? Isn't there an existing car wash nearby? I know it's not a full service like this one, but
I think the easiest thing would be to bring up good old Google Maps.
It's not right next to it because the self-storage is in between, but there's a car wash right there.
yeah, I know where it's at now. And it's the car wash, the storage, and then this is gonna be it right here.
Of course.
A little too close, Rick.
The little guy didn't go where I wanted him to go.
What is this?
Inside storage mart?
Oh, okay.
That's actually part of our EDC project, where all the businesses in Helotes are now on Google 360.
Cool.
Okay, so you can see here, this is the public storage facility that's adjacent to it. Next to that is right here, this is a self-service car wash facility. And these are the 3, you can kind of see the definition, 1, 2, 3 lots here. This development is where Slim's Chicken is currently being constructed. And then, of course, Bandera Plaza with Bandera Road Cafe is adjacent to that. So the parcel of land that we're talking about is this portion in this vicinity here. So it's adjacent to the public storage.
Will there be, if it's, I'm just asking, for, if it's a heavy, is it gonna affect traffic? I mean, if it's only one way in and one way out, I'm just asking, is there another way from the back side to come in and exit out? Or is that a discussion for later?
That actually is a discussion that is completely dominated by TxDOT, because both of those roads are TxDOT's roads, 1560 and also Bandera Road. So they regulate the number and size of ingress egress points onto that development. I believe that's one of the reasons that they are looking at this point at having a shared access easement to the adjoining property, excuse me, which would go into Slim's Chickens. I don't know if that's still in the works, Blake, or not.
I can touch on that a little bit.
Can you
Come
still?
on up. Are you representing Visa or?
No, I'm not. I'm the owner of the 13-acre property.
If you would
So-
put your name and address on record, please.
What's that?
Put your name and address on record for us, please.
My name is Blake Honeybloom, and my address is 970 Isom Road, San Antonio, Texas. So in working with TxDOT on this project, we're creating a main boulevard that's going to be about 60 feet wide. It'll have a right-in, right-out. We did a traffic impact analysis that, proved that up, to your point of trying to understand the traffic a little bit better. Really, the cross-access, TxDOT, that's not one of their concerns. That's more of actually dealing with the city of Helotes from a fire perspective, I think, is how it originally came up. So, I'd have no problem creating a cross-access easement between, our two properties, or the Slim Chickens, and I guess the furthest northern part of the overall tract. So I don't know if that answers your question, but again, to Rick's point, TxDOT is, we had to submit a TIA, and they, approved what we had shown on it, which was the main boulevard.
Are you planning to have, it shows on the plans here, a drive access on the very back of the lot, an entrance? Which would be, it looks like it'd be in lot 4 in that.
Can you pull that back up, Rick?
So are you gonna create some type of, it looks like there's a natural curve right there.
That's the access
now,
to the
but
green space.
Sorry. It's referring to that driveway.
Okay. Yeah, so the property will have cross-access throughout within within the 13 acres. It'll have cross-access throughout every parcel, except for the detention water quality facility, which, is really going to function and look more like green space. We're doing an earth-in detention and water quality facility to preserve the trees. So it'll really act as kind of a nice green space and sound barrier as well. And we'll have that, what you're seeing on the rear is coming off of the main boulevard. We will have a road that access is off of, going towards the detention facility in order for us to maintain it. So that's what the road is.
Are you suggesting but that will be a public access roadway or no?
No,
Okay.
no, yeah.
There will not be another detention facility other than the natural area?
So the natural area, actually, this property is over the recharge. So we got approval through TCEQ, our water pollution abatement plan, to use that entire area as a regional detention facility for the entire development. So basically, if we were to develop the entire site, coverage of the impervious cover of everything shown outside of whatever you're calling the lot, the detention facility, it's large enough to clean the water, the runoff, before it goes back into the aquifer.
Will there be a topo provided later on?
Will there be a?
Topographic map?
Oh, topography. Yes, I don't have it in this,
This,
but
it's
I
my
can
understanding
send
the
it to
stormwater
Rick.
management plan's already been approved by council at the last meeting when we went through the plating process. And so we received TCEQ's, I believe, letter of approval on that and sent that to city council for approval. So that's already been approved by council.
Okay, thank you.
Rick, do you know if either the city or the company itself, what type of market analysis they did? And it brings up the issue, I believe Mario raised it, is that this will make 3 car washes of different styles and types within the city in a relatively small area. And if you look at what the overlay district outlines as sort of the purpose of the district to promote and protect health, quality of life, et cetera, What type of discussions went on regarding that particular piece?
I would defer to the Wash Tub representatives that are here in attendance.
So we do have folks from Washtub here. Excellent. Would you mind, come on up and help us out?
I'm not sure I can answer that.
Okay, but before you do though, just give us your name and your business address.
My name is Matt Visa. I'm at 16035 University Oak.
So do you have any insights you can offer us about this particular location and how it,
We really feel like the city of Helotes needs our product. It's a first-class run car wash where you actually get out of your vehicle. We vacuum, dry, do your windows. Just feel like the city really needs something like that. There is a self-serve, but it's, it's a completely different animal.
correct? Understood. Has there been discussion about hours of operation on this particular location?
From 8 to 6. 8 to 6. And 9 to 5 on Sundays. 8 to 6 Monday through Saturday and 9 to 5 on Sundays.
Other questions?
We'll be
He is
heavily
here.
involved with the community, the chamber, the city of Lotus.
No
It's
doubt.
kind of our forte to be very involved with the community.
Will the organization consider hiring Helotes or looking at that? the Helotes addresses?
Definitely. We'll be employing about 50 people altogether, about 25 full-time and 25 part-time.
A lot of the employees you have are young people.
Young
who,
folks, college.
college.
Some high school on the weekends, yes,
So
sir.
you're looking at possibly people within the proximity?
Definitely, definitely.
Because I know you have another car wash, wash tub,
Down on Gilbo and Bandera.
like 2 miles or something from here?
It's 3.6 miles.
And that's not a conflict in your
Not at
business
all,
to?
not at all.
In your experience with these type of facilities, you've heard the discussion here regarding concerns about mitigating sound and noise and whatnot. The type of the location and the distance and so forth, in your view, based on your experience, how does that work?
It's
with
been
what they're
very,
looking at here?
very minimal, really. Sound pollution has never been an issue before at any of our projects.
Other questions?
I just would
Yes.
like to add again, and I know we've discussed it tonight, but, and I can say, because I've experienced your company, I think the biggest thing is that when you get your peak, and you will get them, as you well know, blue
Yes, sir.
skies, sunny, great weather,
Yes, sir.
getting in and out of the property can become a hazard. That's why I was asking about the entrance in and out. I didn't know.
I think because there's only going to be one way in and one way out, it's going to solve a lot of those issues of people having multiple access to the property. Just going through one centralized area is going to be really, fantastic for the whole development.
Very good.
Wait, explain that. That doesn't make sense to me. How does having one entrance and one exit make for smoother,
Well,
more
when you think
efficient
about it,
travel?
when you're on Bandera Road and you've got multiple entrances and exits, the likelihood of wrecks and high-speed collisions is,
So
much more.
you don't mean into your property, you mean into the various,
Correct.
the total of 3? And they'll be cross? Total of 4. Excuse me.
Our properties, our cars will have to go north a little bit on this cross-access easement to be able to release the cars to Bandera Road.
Well, the traffic analysis is in TxDOT's hands, not ours, but,
TxDOT has given it its approval.
is that right, Rick?
Yes.
Far be it from me to argue with the experts, but I have driven around here for a long time to know how it works.
But it sounds like you have a backup. It sounds like you're going to utilize the existing companies nearby, such as Slim Chickens, where you're going to try to, because, I mean, I know you know this, when it's overflowing, with customers, people are trying to get out, it could become even that parking lot itself, there's people washing cars, there's no one directing traffic to get out of that parking facility. Well, they try, but, people are working. So I was just thinking about the safety part, but as long as there's that possibility where there's another way to make an exit, I think that's something that should be considered.
We'll do our best.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If there are no other questions at the moment, we can have a motion on item 6.
I do have one more quick question.
Yeah,
Chair.
go for it.
For you. What is the process like if I were coming to get my car washed, where would I first go to?
You'll go into our, what we refer to as our vacuum area. I don't know if we can throw it up on the screen, but.
Why don't you come here? and
Basically, you come into our facility and you're greeted by a service advisor that analyzes your car with you, describes what kind of services you're gonna get depending on your needs and what the customer wants to buy. And they go into our, what we refer to as our vacuum.
Why don't we,
it's
why don't,
referred to
here,
as
let
the
me give
vacuum
you
bay.
the pointer real quick, so that you can use it.
They'll enter here, in this area here. That's where our service advisor will greet the customer, will vacuum the vehicle, and at that time, the customer goes into a real nice retail lobby.
While you're doing that, could you please show the flow of the traffic through the
Sure.
vacuum area?
It's gonna be coming from this access through here into here, and then making a loop into the vehicle entry area, releasing, and then going back out the exit.
And I don't mean to keep harping on this, but I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna put it out there. Does the traffic, when you have that peak rush, accommodate for cars when the parking lot is full, the line, because you have 2 or 3 lines, I believe? Will the traffic also extend into Bandera Road? Because I've seen it happen in Leon Valley, where there's a total stoppage of traffic because there's cars waiting to get into the facility. That's my question.
Well, I think Blake can tell you about the,
My name's Rick Algie. I'm the Director of Fixed Operations for the Wash Tub Car Wash, same address. The difference between this facility and the Bandera facility is we only have 2 vacuum lanes at the Bandera location. So the stacking, or what we call the queue area where the cars are sitting, here is 30% more on this one, on property. Where Bandera, we're trying to smash, 3 lanes into 2, which overflows into the street.
This is Bandera, isn't it?
They have another one down there.
location on Bandera and Goodlette.
Okay, all right.
So to change the term slightly, if you just talk about your property, leave Bandera out of it for a moment, the way you showed it suggests there's cars coming in and the stacking of cars as they are prepped to leave are basically in the same area. Now, I don't know if that's well represented on how it's drawn here, but it seems like it's, they come out where it says vehicle exit there. That's awfully, by this representation, awfully close to where they're entering in.
And it's done all the time at our locations. It really is. It's a common situation that we deal with every day.
Is the customer in the car at that point? In the car wash?
Out here, we deliver the car to the customer. And
Let me
Okay,
ask
so
you one question.
They
If,
drop off,
Hang on a second, Joe.
so they drop off, they go inside,
Yes, sir.
go in the vacuum bay, you guys vacuum them. One of your employees drives it into the car wash,
Right.
comes out.
down.
Where does it go from there?
In this area right here, there's about 5 or 6 cars that will be doing our drying process. Maybe 10 cars at a time, just depends.
Is this
How busy we
facility,
are.
I'm sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
Do you know how much space there is from that vehicle exit to the front of the property? Foot-wise, footage-wise?
I think,
Over 100 feet. So, and I want to touch on that. So from the front of this property on Bandera Road,
Come so the mic can get you.
sorry, from the front of this property
I
onto
would like
Bandera.
to suggest one thing, though, in the same manner that the chairman referred to the comments that I made. This is more of a conceptual design plan conversation, not so much a zoning discussion.
yeah.
So I would recommend having these comments during the subsequent item, not during the zoning matter.
Yeah,
Fair point.
yeah.
Joe, you had, on the same lines, you want to hold? up for
Yeah,
next?
I can wait. Yeah,
Right.
I just had a,
I just want to, just to be clear on one thing. From the front of this property to the rear of the property is 360 feet. So there's a lot more scale involved. I mean, so if you look down here, just as a reference, this is 30 feet. So I know we can't do it exact, but I mean, we're talking about 75 feet from here to maybe even the access drive. So there's significant amount of room to operate within the actual parcel.
So let's have ourselves a motion, and we could talk about the motion regarding the use only as opposed to the design.
Mr. Chair, I approve this motion. Or recommend,
First we have to have a
recommend
motion. We
to,
can't-
I approve,
can't even do
I
it yet.
recommend this, this discussion to get us moving.
Okay, why don't we, somebody needs to read it.
And I'll do it.
Let me ask somebody else to just model it through. Ron, would you just model it through for Mario?
No, go ahead.
No? Somebody,
I can read it.
go ahead. This is a recommend, correct?
This
It
is a
goes to council.
recommendation
Yep,
to
so you-
request by Visa Wash, Inc., DBA The Wash Tub, for approval of a specific city council approved use permit for a full-service car wash to be located on a 1.333 acre lot described as Lot 3, Block 2, within the Bandera Oaks subdivision located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road, State Highway 16, and Cedar Trail, and formerly addressed as 12440 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas 78023.
All right, thank you. Is there a second for that that motion to recommend approval?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion of the motion. Anyone?
I'll just say, I agree. I think that Helotes does need a full-service car wash. I think it'd be very beneficial to this community. I don't like the location, but that's, I mean, you gotta go what you gotta do.
You know, the reason I am in favor of recommending, Mr. Chair, is that this Helotes and the wash tub could be is a good fit. I've been to the wash tub. They have a quality business. And again, I like the fact that they are thinking about employing our residents and especially our young people, because it's predominantly young employees they have there. I think that's really important, especially when we're thinking about our students who want to go to school near here. We want them to know that they don't have to leave too far from home when we're thinking about this. But the big picture is that this is the only full-service one we'll have, but I am concerned about the other discussion we're having, but as Mr. Rick pointed out, this is not a discussion for this particular item, but overall, the big picture, I believe that the wash tub and Helotes could be a really happy partnership for many years to come, so that's why I'm in favor of recommending.
Other discussion?
Question. Does that motion include everything, site plan, building design?
No, sir.
Next item.
Okay, all right.
I would add that I agree it's a fine business, and I've patronized it for quite a while and usually end up spending more than I intend to when I go in, but I would just point out to council, this goes to council next. If you look at the overlay district discussion, the purpose of it is to create a more attractive, cohesive, and safe environment, to create favorable impressions of Helotes that provide environmental enrichments to the citizens of the city, to reduce visual chaos and limit distractions along public roadways. And I don't mean to suggest that this particular business would compromise any of that, but I do think that the council needs to consider carefully what they want the overlay district to look like. And I think that there needs to be a broad vision for what that corridor should include and how it should look. And I think that's a discussion that council will have both on this item, but as it plans for the future. So at this point, the motion is to recommend approval on the request by Visa Wash for approval of a specific city council approved use permit for a full-service car wash on a 1.33 acre lot described as Lot 3, Block 2 within Bandera Oaks subdivision located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road and Cedar Trail. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That was everybody. Motion is approved, and that part of it, I assume all of it, will go to council on the date of?
Next Thursday, well, the next council meeting. which
That'd be
would
11th, I believe, of May.
Yes, the
So
11th.
that's your next target date. So we will now move ahead to the next item, which is item 7, which I will refrain from reading the full caption to it, except to note that it is the same business, the same property, but this time we're talking about a conceptual design plan, including site plan, building design, exterior lighting, and signage. So at this point, we may revisit some of the topics we've already begun discussing.
Okay.
And I open it up to the other commissioners.
I actually have a few comments, Chair.
Yeah,
if I could.
go ahead. Can you put the map, I'm sorry, the
Yes.
conceptual site up? Just leave it up for this discussion. Thank you.
Okay, staff has reviewed this item in its entirety, looking at it not only from the perspective of the zoning code and what building setback regulations are, but also the aesthetic. And frankly, I tend to weigh more on what the building physically looks like than anything else. And I believe that's what makes an attractive, cohesive development that's representative of Helotes. And so when we met with these individuals, we encouraged them highly to include rock around the entire 4 sides of the building, to include standing seam metal or some sort of metal roofing on top of the structure, and to have a porch or a patio in the front. They have complied with that in its entirety. They have also opted to only include wall signage on this structure, on the front and the rear, and not to have a monument sign along Bandera Road, at least at this time. Looking through here, I would offer that the vacuum bay was not included in the conceptual design. So as a commission, I would recommend that y'all require that come back in May.
I'm sorry, it is not, what,
The vacuum bay structure, what it looks like, is not included in their
Structure, got it.
conceptual.
Okay.
And so I would recommend that that come back in May. And I've already talked to the applicant about that. The other thing that we suggested during preliminary development meetings is the shade port structures. Originally, they were going to have them along the front near Bandera Road. I'm glad that they have decided to move them to the side of the property and the rear. I originally suggested beige rather than black. You can see that they've proposed black here. My recommendation would still be to change those to beige so it fits within the color scheme of the city. We have reviewed the parking requirements. The parking requirements appear to be correct. The only other comment I would have is if the commission approves the conceptual, that they ensure that the exterior lighting is full cutoff or nighttime friendly. I said that was the last recommendation, but I have one more. On the signage in the front of the building, we spoke to their architect, or I tried to talk to their architect, but wasn't able to reach them. They did not include the specifications for the signage, including the size. In talking to the developers tonight, these are meant to be wall signs, non-illuminated wall signs, made out essentially of painted or coated metal in this form. As proposed, they are approximately 64 square feet. The frontage of the building, including the patio structure, is approximately 50 linear feet, and they are amenable to lowering the size of the wall signs to a maximum of 50 linear feet on both sides of the building. With that,
that's total? 2 signs total?
one sign in the front and one sign in the rear
At
for at 50 square feet per sign. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the conceptual as well. To Commissioner Rios's comments about stacking and all of that, again, I'm going to have to defer to the developer and to Wash Tub on those questions. Frankly, I don't know the business model that well, so.
And just to clarify one thing, there was discussion, maybe it was only in the cover letter, about the lights being full cutoff.
I just don't have in the packet the specs.
Got it.
For the lights, and so if you make a motion, I would
Yep.
prefer that to be in there.
Okay, Ron?
Rick, maybe I misunderstood, but you said the porch was in the back?
No, the porch is in the front.
Okay. That's what I,
Porches. Near the vehicle exit.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
And do we have dimensions of the sign in the packet?
No, when they squared, that's what I was speaking with them before the meeting. When if they square it out, it's approximately 8 by 8. But as is always the case with signs, the top roof edge, you can see, it's not technically 8 by 8. So it would be 64 square feet plus or minus as proposed. They are willing to come down to the required linear footage of the building in the front, which would be approximately 50 square feet.
Questions?
I have one question.
Go ahead, John.
About the traffic flow there. I know you said they're going to come back with the design of the bay, but I was wondering if you have a customer who gets to the bay, almost to the bay, and then change their mind, how does that traffic flow backward? What do they do then? They turn around, or do they go around the building, or
They would exit out that rear drive next to the dumpster enclosure.
they'd be able to go around the building from the back? Straight?
Yes,
Okay,
to the
okay,
left.
Okay.
Which is going into Slim Chickens parking area, is that correct, or
No.
That's
The
different area?
The rear drive, let me bring that up again. Let's see. This rear drive facility, drive access is actually going to a common roadway, if I understand correctly, that is put there to service the detention facility to the rear. This is going to essentially be a condo-type HOA complex where everybody pays, I'm assuming, everybody would pitch in a maintenance fee so that the detention area in the rear can be maintained. And so they have to have access per our code to that detention facility, not only for them to maintain it, but also if the city needed to step in and do something, that we would have access to it. And so that would provide access not only to the rear of the car wash facility to come around and hit the main entrance. I don't have my clicker. And then exit back out to Bandera Road. So there's two ingress, egress on that property. But the main one is of course, fronting Bandera Road on the main entrance into the entire development.
I think that's important. I think there's got to be a backup way out. That was my whole thought all evening is,
Sure.
Yeah,
Only because
there
I
is a secondary ingress, egress to the rear of that property.
Can you go to the plat, so I'll just talk about the.
I don't have the plat on
Or
here.
the, you had the lot.
Oh, the lot
Yeah,
layout?
the
Yeah.
lot lines.
It was earlier on.
That's the first one.
So you aren't gonna have any type of enter-exit signs
Well,
on those?
so I'll explain it a little bit, hopefully a little bit better. All right, so you've got the whole entire property, okay? This is where the wash tub is looking. This, in that back road will be right in this area. It'll come through here. So this will be the main boulevard, and then that back road will continue towards the detention facility. And then in the front, there will be this will be another pad site. And so we'll have cross access through the entire property along the frontage. And then this will be the entrance onto Bandera. To your point, Slim Chickens is on this lot, I believe, over here. So they'll have 3 lots in between Wash Tub and Slim Chickens.
So they'll be queuing across a whole other lot before they have an opportunity just to make a left-hand turn out onto Bandera Road, off of your property. out
Right,
onto Bandera.
that would be, that's correct. And so,
So do we have any idea how far, what distance is it from your western property line to the center line of that driveway onto Bandera Road? Do you know what that distance would be?
oh, here we go. Thanks, Ben. From the center line, 120 feet.
Okay.
So, what's a car length? What's a cube in?
18.
We use 18.
Yeah,
so-
we'll use 18. So 10 is, less than 10, 8, something right in that range.
Okay.
Now that's 8 just from the property line to the main boulevard. Now they'll have, I forget the footage from, what are you calling that? The drop-off station, the vacuum station?
Finishing area.
Yeah, the finishing area. So it may end up being 250 feet in reality from when you drop your car off at the vacuum to the ingress, egress of the overall development.
Okay, so I mean, I'm looking at, I don't have a scale, I'm not the architect or the site planner, but, so you have this pad, I'm looking at sheet 2 from Charles Pope's Architects. So you have this vehicle exit area, which is presumably like kind of the area where the car comes off the chute, and I guess one of your employees at that point would get in and maybe move the car forward.
Yeah, they
in
will
order
stay,
to
they'll spread them out.
Right, to move it on, and then have your crew, as I recall your
Side driver.
operation, then your guys will wipe and do their final touch-up and so forth. So it looks like you have more or less 50 feet from that area to like the center line of your exit, but that doesn't actually exit onto even the direct driveway on a Bandera Road. You have to go through a whole other property.
Yes.
And so we have, you sort of have some time to, I think the concern from, at least from me, I can't speak for the commissioners, is, people are gonna come off that 50 feet and immediately make a left onto Bandera Road is a concern.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that was where we
And
like,
that,
oh,
that's
that's a
to
lot
what
of,
Matt's point was, is that we're staging the cars on private property.
Right.
And then they're able to accelerate onto Bandera one at a time, instead of there being multiple drives or
Yeah.
where they're pushing straight out onto Bandera. Road.
Unlike the Leon Valley location, which is not that same floor plan. I don't know, if my fellow colleagues have been there, but you're being forced out onto oncoming traffic, which is sometimes could be kind of challenging.
Yes, sir, definitely.
The parking that is there meets code, correct, Rick?
Yes, sir.
Are sidewalks required?
No.
Is this facility able to accommodate, and again, I'm speaking because I've been to the car wash tub at the wash tub in Leon Valley. Does it accommodate that same customer count, or is it larger, or is it smaller? Okay.
But
You expect,
We're on about 35,000 square feet at Bandera, and be able to, on,
58.
58,000 square feet.
do you mind sharing, a good day of customers, you'll see 200 people?
200, 225, 250 cars a day, which is like 20 cars an hour.
And there's space, as you said, to stage them because you'll have 4 vacuum bays. So even though the facility itself washes 1 car at a time, I presume, that's no different from anywhere else. It's just that you can spread them out a little bit more
We're able to,
because you
yeah,
have several
so-
bays.
There'll be 3 getting vacuumed at one time.
Right.
And then they're queued, depending on who comes first, they're queued, and then they're loaded in the tunnel, and the tunnel can accommodate around 4 to 5, depending on how fast we're pushing them through in the tunnel.
Quick question. Do you do any detailing?
Yes, sir. That's what the 2 shade port structures are down on the corner where down here. That's where the detail's done.
And then these parking on the far end, that's for your employees?
Employee, yes, sir.
So you don't anticipate any more than 14
Yes, sir.
cars?
And the few spots up here are for cars that are left behind. There's occasional people will leave, go eat next door, and we'll stage them over there.
All right.
Is there size limitation on vehicles?
Width and height, yes, sir. No dualies, and nothing over 91 inches tall, and nothing with a wider than a 14.5-inch tire. That's pretty much the criteria.
I'd like to suggest it's a good time for a motion. I feel we've all gotten our car wash education tonight. As the city administrator pointed out, a couple deficiencies that are easily corrected and just should be articulated here. One is that the exterior lighting be full cutoff. Another is that the wall signage, each of 2 signs conform to code, which would be, what we said, 50?
Approximately 50 square feet. Yes.
Approximately 50 per sign. And then the third item was on the vacuum canopy or vacuum bay that the applicant return in June.
Yes.
To
Mr. Chair,
No.
have that approved.
Yes, June.
I propose a motion, if you will add that to it.
We'll work it out. Why don't you go ahead and
Okay.
start?
Okay. I want to propose a promotion to approve the request by Visa Wash Incorporation, DBA The Wash Tub, for approval of a conceptual design plan for a full-service car wash to be located at 1.333 acres lot described as Lot 3, Block 2, within the Bandera Oak subdivision, located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road, SH 16, and Cedar Trail, and formerly addressed as 12440 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas, 78023,
And
including the site plan, building design, exterior lighting, and signage upon application.
Ron, go ahead.
I'll second that, with the noting that all lighting will be full cutoff. The signs will not exceed 50 square feet each. And the vacuum bay, which is not shown on our site plan, will be brought back to us at a future meeting.
That consistent with what you'd like, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, so we got a motion, we have a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Joe, Ron?
Are we gonna do the beige?
I don't have any further discussion.
That's not included in it. I mean, we can add it in it if there's sentiment for it. You know, I don't know what the commissioners feel. This is,
I would support that if staff is wanting to
I could add that.
propose that, especially if we're trying to keep the Helotes look and feel, you know, within the color scheme. I would suggest that that's something that we should consider tonight.
is that all right with you, Joe? Will you accept that amendment
What,
to your motion?
I didn't understand what.
The request is to amend your motion to include changing the color of the detail canopy. The canopy, is that a fair way to call it? Canopy from black to beige to be
Yes,
consistent with
that's
the
okay.
building.
Yes.
Is that good with you?
That's good.
Okay, so we'll add that. Other discussion?
Is this vacuum bay, is that canopy also, or is that hard roof?
We don't know yet.
You can answer though.
Just for.
It's a Galvalume steel structure with a
steel.
Galvalume R-panel roof, no sides, basically 6 columns, or, excuse me, 4 columns in the back, 4 in the front, 12-inch footprint each column.
It will accommodate 2 or 3 bays?
3 vehicles.
Okay.
3 vehicles, one, yeah, in single vehicle in each one of the little bays.
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion to read it back one more time. And Rick, this does not go to council, correct?
The conceptual, no, sir.
So this is indeed an approval item. So the motion is to approve the request by Visa Wash for approval, to approve the conceptual design plan for the full-service car wash within the Bandera Oaks subdivision located generally near the intersection of Bandera Road and Cedar Trail, including site plan, building design, exterior lighting, and signage, with the conditions that the vacuum bay structure be brought back before this body in June for approval, that the exterior lighting be full cutoff, that each wall sign be limited to 50 square feet per sign, and that the detail port canopy be changed from black to beige. All in favor of that motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion is approved. Thank you, gentlemen, for responding to our questions. It will be May 11th that all the zoning change will go before, or the use piece will go before city council. Great. Great, thank you, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That ends the car wash portion of the evening's agenda. We'll go to item 8, which is discussion and action on a request by Ms. Colleen M. Miller for approval of a multi-tenant monument sign and/or creative sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98, Section 72, subsection G, which is the Old Town Helotes Special District Sign Regulations. This is for Rhonda's Coffee House, Helotes Creek Bed and Breakfast, and Helotes Creek Winery at 14391 Riggs Road. Turn it to the city administrator. Is there a representative of the owner here tonight? Yes, okay, if we have questions.
Okay, you'll notice that it's a little weird on the agenda item tonight where it talks about a multi-tenant monument sign and/or a creative sign. And frankly, that's because staff couldn't figure out exactly how to handle this, and so we're punting the ball to you. We certainly don't have an issue with the way it looks or with how it is presented. I think it represents, is very similar to other signage that we have throughout Old Town. And I look forward to a bed and breakfast and a coffee house, and her being able to advertise Helotes Creek Winery a little bit more than she currently is able to. We would typically, on these types of signs, if it was just refacing Southern Gypsy with a different business, as long as there wasn't an extended period between one going out of business and another one coming in, we would typically administratively approve it as maintenance of an existing sign, as long as it conformed with the wall sign, or excuse me, the monument signage regulations that we have within Chapter 98-72, which is the sign provisions for Old Town Helotes. You can see that they are adding Helotes Creek Winery to the rear, or to the bottom of it. And so it really depends on how the Planning and Zoning Commission wishes to handle this. The question is it maintenance of an existing sign? I tend to argue that the structure of the sign is not changing at all, but rather we're just adding signage for additional businesses within that center. If that's the case, I would recommend that if you approve this sign, that you add the address of the facility. On that sign, there is no address, to my knowledge, for any of the businesses within the Bluffs at Old Town Helotes, which is what this business is, or which is what this whole development is called. And also that the landscaping underneath the signage be added to and maintained a little bit more than it's currently being done. If the commission deems it not to be maintenance of an existing sign, then it would fall into, I believe, the creative sign category, which, if you recall, all variances within the Old Town Helotes Special District have to be reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and approved by the City Council. And then if y'all wish to handle it that way, then the commission would essentially punt the ball to council at that point. My true feeling on this is that it really is sort of a maintenance of an existing sign. It's already a non-conforming sign within Old Town Helotes. The use is very similar, and it certainly fits within the types of businesses that we're trying to bring within Old Town. And so those are staff's comments about the signage.
All right, so let's open it up for questions.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
My question, Rick, is Rhonda's Coffee House the same business as Helotes Creek Winery? Are they hand in hand, or are they two separate businesses?
They, to my knowledge, are two separate businesses. Helotes Creek Winery is already there to the rear of that development. The Helotes Creek Bed and Breakfast the building that's actually behind that sign will become the bed and breakfast, but that's on the second story, correct? And the bottom story will be the coffee house that they're proposing. So that's a two-story existing structure there, right along Old Bandera Road, really at the intersection of Old Bandera and Riggs at the traffic circle. The top story will become a bed and breakfast. The bottom story will become the coffee house. And then to the rear is already the Helotes Creek Winery.
3 different owners.
It's all, my understanding, all the same owner. Maybe I'm incorrect on that.
3 different businesses, 3 different.
3 different businesses, yes.
Hello.
Hi,
gonna
I'm
guess
Colleen
you're-
Miller. Actually, I'm the owner of the Helotes Creek Winery and the Helotes Creek Bed and Breakfast. My sister Rhonda is going to be the owner of the coffee house below. So we do share in the same building. We have 1 air conditioner and 1 heater that services that entire building. So it just worked out better to have the building instead of someone else doing it with family. And so there are two businesses, 2 separate owners in the one building.
And 2 of the businesses are already in existence, the other one's gonna be a new business, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. Thank you.
I have a difficult time looking at this and interpreting it as maintenance of an existing sign, given how much it's changing. So I would feel more comfortable recommending to the commission that it considers it a creative sign. and taking that approach. I would also ask, just from staff's perspective, when you look at this, why does staff see this not as a pole sign?
Well, I would not consider it a pole sign because it's between two poles rather than on one pole. A freestanding sign within, the commission has approved and the council has approved signage within the Old Town District that is a freestanding sign between two poles. The issue here is that this signage was already existing, and if you calculate the total square footage, including the structure of the sign, it's more than the 20 square feet that is
Right.
allowed.
Which is hence the creative approach would be appropriate.
Yeah, you can't approve a variance in Old Town except through what they call a creative sign review.
And what are we looking at for that, the roof canopy? Is that a metal
It's a metal roof.
piece?
It's a metal roof, and there's lighting underneath it that shines down.
The sign that's there now, the existing sign, is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yes.
And it's not lit, is that right?
No, it is lit. There's lighting underneath
Sorry.
the roof.
Got it. So if we go the creative sign route, it needs to be included, the comment regarding the address to be included on the sign.
I mean,
Recommended.
Well, we typically consider addressing more of a health and safety issue.
Right.
So yes, at a minimum, we would request that the address be added.
As well as the landscaping. And it is one-sided, is that right?
No, it's two-sided.
It's two-sided, okay. Same on both sides, I gather.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's
Other
currently
questions?
two signs?
Joe?
It's
Yes, it
currently
is.
two signs?
Yes.
Two-sided.
Mr.
Jeff?
Chairman, why isn't this handled under the, what he showed us here, chapter 66, 66,
Monument?
49 through 51?
I'm not, well,
Multi-tenant.
it's an Old Town, so it falls within the Old Town regulations, which allow you a little more
That's what this
flexibility.
is, though.
66,
49 through 66, 51.
right, but there's two different types. That is, what is that one? Monument multi-tenant?
But
There's also the creative sign one, which I believe is on the next page.
Business park
Well, right, it's
or
not,
office complex.
I'm not understanding where y'all are looking.
we are,
You put it in our packet, right behind the signs.
Yes, that's actually section 98
9872.
dash 72 within the zoning code. And it
No,
says the
page
following
before
sign,
that is chapter 66, section 6649 through 6651 in Old Town District, commercial signs, signal business or multi-tenant shopping center, business park, or office complex, monument type.
yes, but what it's saying is the sentence before that says the following sign requirement shall replace those of chapter 66, article 5, section 66-49 through 66-51. So basically, in Old Town, we revised the revisions for those types of signs, and everything that regulates Old Town is within the zoning code.
Right here,
For,
section 1 through 7.
yes, no, there's different categories of signage, but the one that most closely fits with this is the monument type.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for.
Wait, hang on,
Mr. Rick.
does that help, Jeff? Or leaves you confused still?
Still confused.
Let's look up and find 9872. Go
Keep
ahead.
the dialogue going. I don't want to interrupt. I just
Well,
had a
I'm
thought.
fine where
My
it is.
question is, Rick, are there other businesses in Old Town that have the same concept with the multi-sign, where it's multi-businesses and they share that one sign? It's like what staff is proposing tonight. Instead of going the creative sign route, the first mention, which was called the existing monumental sign, modifying it. Are there other signages like that in Old Town?
My initial knee-jerk reaction is to say yes, because there are many non-conforming signs within Old Town. By the sheer fact that it's a sort of a historic district, so there's all sorts of weird stuff in Old Town. Think about Floor Country Store. Nothing on Floor Country Store complies with our current sign ordinance.
Mr. Chair,
But I would have to go through each lot to figure out whether there is another multi-tenant sign similar to this. But this has been here before I came to the city, and I came to the city in 2006. So it's been there for quite some time.
I must say with that thought, Mr. Chair, I know that we're thinking about the creative signs, but I have no problem going the other route. I mean, this sign is there, it's established sign, it meets code. You know, I have no problem going the other direction with this because of the fact that it keeps with the character of Old Town, and it's functional, and it works, and it's the same businesses, you know, so I'm just putting it out there. That's where I'm thinking in my mind right now.
I would just interject, and if you look at what replaces 6649, it limits it to 20 square feet, I believe. And I don't think this sign is considerably larger than that, is it not?
It's larger than 20
So,
square
I
feet.
mean, I think that if you go the creative route, it already allows for that, whereas this designation as a monument sign does not.
Okay, I was understanding it that staff was suggesting that it was all within code, and we're just modifying.
I think it violates the height as well, if I'm reading
Does
this
it?
correctly.
Well, but what I was suggesting is, it is now already and will continue to be a non-conforming sign. We allow throughout the entire city people to reface their signs as long as the structure does not change. But here, they're adding the additional Helotes Creek Winery with the arrow at the bottom. If they had just presented changing it with the same size sign for a different business, we would have administratively approved it. Because the structure wasn't changing, the signage was essentially the same. But the addition of the Helotes Creek Winery paused my thinking process there, and so that's why I brought it before the commission, just to see what your thoughts were.
Very good. I understand the points here.
Okay. Other comments? We could try a motion. Anybody would like to? Talked about address.
If you went address, would it, are they suite numbers there, or?
There is
Like Helotes Creek Winery, is that a different physical address than what the coffee shop and?
All of the businesses in the Bluffs of Old Town all have the same physical street address. We all have different suite numbers.
But it would be sufficient.
I would
again,
recommend having the street number
the
placed on
number,
there.
not the suites.
Yeah, not the suite, but just the number.
Right.
And the idea there is so that when the fire department or whoever is going down there, they hopefully can easily identify where it's located quicker because there's a street number there.
Right. Okay. Is there a motion? Or rather, who would like to make a motion? And this will, well, actually, you want to do it? No. This is a recommend item, is that right? If it goes creative.
If it goes creative, yes, it would be recommend.
Right.
If you approve it outright, no.
You recommend a creative sign? Rick?
I was either recommending the commission determine whether it should go the creative route or whether you would want to approve it as presented.
Because in your mindset, either way is the right way. Or you're just putting it out there for the commission.
I'm basically not wanting to make the decision, so I'd rather y'all do it. I can see pros and cons to both sides. I can see that this essentially is, in my opinion, I know that the chair probably disagrees with this, but that it's, to me, it looks like a whole lot of maintenance going on here because you're basically replacing the face of a sign that's already in existence. But they are adding an additional portion of that sign to the rear, and so that's what caused me some concern that I didn't want to approve this administratively, and so that's why it's before y'all tonight.
I think it's a creative sign simply because it's changing.
I want to thank the administrator for bringing it to our
Yeah, give us
That's
some,
for
make us
discussion.
work. I mean, that's what we gotta do. That's our
In
job.
essence, it's a distinction without a difference in that but it sets a precedent. In other words, we want to be consistent with how we treat other signs that come before us. And so,
I would like to actually make a motion.
Go ahead.
To recommend approval to city council, for this sign to be approved under the creative sign ordinance.
would you like to,
With the stipulations,
Yeah.
of course, that the recommendations before us to, add some maintenance to the landscaping and to add the, street address number.
I'll
as
second
requested by council, as requested by
is
staff.
there a second?
Joe's got it.
All right, discussion of the motion. Jason, anything?
Just to add, I think, to my mind, what does push this over is adding multi-tenants. And, you know, if it were just refacing and having a single tenant, but, you know, before us is the issue of, you know, it's fair that it's more or less one tenant within a family, but we don't know if it would stay that way. You know, potentially businesses can change hands, you know, other things, somebody else can move in and want to change the sign, want to, you know, change the font, change the color, make it bigger even. It's, you know, we're sort of shoehorning a multi-tenant sign into this single business sign, and then potentially it gets shoehorned further down the road. And, you know, I think it's a fine sign. I think the look of it is fine, and it's in keeping with sort of the funkiness of the downtown, but I don't want to, you know, let the floodgates open.
Joe or anyone else?
Well, I think it's a creative sign because it's more than just maintenance.
So the motion is to recommend to council approval of the request by Colleen and Miller for a creative sign pursuant to 9872G Old Town Helotes Special District sign regulations for Rhonda's Coffee House, Helotes Creek Bed and Breakfast, and Helotes Creek Winery located at 14391 Riggs Road, with the stipulations that the address be affixed to the sign and that the landscaping be maintained around the sign. All in favor of the motion, signal aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is approved. May 11th, City Council will take it up. But these guys have heard the discussion, so thank you for sticking around and congratulations. Item 9 tonight is discussion and action on a request by Gigi's House for approval of a creative sign pursuant to 9872G Old Town Helotes Special District sign regulations for a boutique and venue at 14405 Bandera Road. This is in Old Town as well. City Administrator, any comments or discussions?
This clearly, when it was presented to me, is a creative sign. It's on top of the roof structure. The old tenant has left the building and is no longer there, and it's been some time. So
Where is this?
it's adjacent to where Solars used to be. So as you're looking at Solars,
Oh.
it would be the building to the right where the old
Right.
Helotes Creek Winery used to be prior to its new and improved version. So it's a creative sign, needs to be reviewed by P and Z and approved by City Council. Staff has no comments on it.
I'm thinking, I apologize if this strays off topic, I'm sure you'll tell me. In terms of use, it's a venue?
They're planning a boutique and venue space. I have no idea what,
Could we run into issues there with the use itself, because the venue really doesn't tell us anything?
no, in a event, if it's an event center or something along those lines, that would be allowed within Old Town. Old Town has the least restrictive zoning throughout the entire city.
Right.
so.
Comments, discussion? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, what is on our creative sign, do we have a maximum square footage?
No, there are no rules for creative signs. Basically, the commission and council can do whatever it would like.
No rules?
There are no rules for creative signs. You either like it or you don't.
Wow.
But size-wise, that holds for size as well.
There are, yes.
but lighting is still, we don't allow uplighting on a sign.
You could, in this case, if you wanted to. There are no regulations for creative signs.
That's not proposed here, though.
No, there is no lighting that's proposed, to my understanding.
Illuminated.
Yeah.
Hi.
Good evening. My name's Howard Benavides. I own Eagle Ford Graphics and Signs, 12682 FM 1560. Currently, there is a structure there. It's approximately 16 feet wide, 2 feet tall. There is some existing lighting that had existed from the previous tenant at that location. It is a roof-mounted light, several units that do shine on the sign.
Say that last part again. It is a roof-mounted light.
So there is like a porch area, and then there's several lights that do shine on the sign.
So they're actually upward.
It's more horizontal. It's on the same level as the sign. That roof is relatively low-pitched, so it does shine on the sign from a horizontal perspective.
Okay.
All right, I appreciate that.
Questions, comments?
This visual that we're looking at, is this the proposed sign, or is this just an example, or
It's a proposed.
These house
the
one?
proposed sign that will be lit up, as you say?
Yes, there is existing lighting there, correct.
Yes.
But this is the sign that's,
This is your proposal.
It's a rendering, yes, sir. Yeah.
Richard,
Does it need an address?
I've got it in front.
Not,
there's on the bill.
we
is there-
typically would not require addresses on roof signs,
Right.
Oh,
but there should be an address on the building
It,
itself,
it looks like there's one on the building.
Yeah, I see it now.
Yeah.
which would be handled when the fire marshal goes in and does the certificate of occupancy
Sure.
check.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, wait, hang on.
It's not for him.
Okay.
My in experience, why this is a creative sign and not a regular sign announcing a business.
So
Because
why
the-
creative instead
Why
of
does
saying
it have
wall?
to be under
Or-
creative?
Yeah. Go ahead, Rick.
Because there is no designation within Old Town for roof-mounted signage. And so any variance to the sign code within Old Town has to go through the creative sign review process. And that has to go through P and Z and then City Council. There are other instances in Old Town where roof-mounted signage has been approved, but it went through that same process.
Through creative sign.
Yes.
Because to me, I mean, and if you look at the definition and the specific things of a creative sign, this isn't, to me, this isn't a creative sign. I mean, yeah, it looks nice, but it doesn't do some of the things that it says. So that's why I just don't understand why it has to go under a creative sign.
I think I'd go back to what the city administrator said, in which that there isn't any other category for it. Unless you were to somehow interpret it as a wall sign, which I gather you considered, staff considered, but
No, well, we wouldn't consider it a wall sign because it's
Right.
mounted on top of the roof. Perhaps we should change the name of the creative sign review and just do a variance, because people tend to get hooked up on the creative thing. But essentially, it's just a variance mechanism for anything that's outside the normal scope of regulations within Old Town. We also have creative sign throughout the remainder of the city as well, if they decided to go through a creative sign review on that.
I would say I'd express my personal view here, that I am concerned about the sign in terms of lighting. That the sign itself may not be illuminated, but having roof lighting on it doesn't seem consistent with what we're asking of other businesses in the area.
Is it a night business, the venue part? Does it is business hours at night?
No, I just make the signs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're.
Okay.
I think we'd be certainly within our purview to say that lights would not be appropriate for the sign, but that's a call that, everybody here has to make.
Are there other signs in Old Town that have roof signs such as this one?
Yes.
That have roof signs, you say? Yes.
Yes.
Are they lit?
Are they lit?
Is the
Floors
attorney's
is lit.
office lit?
Which one?
I believe it actually is. The attorney's office that is next to Doris Young Realty has a roof-mounted sign. And of course, Mander Automotive has a lit rooftop sign, but they've been there before the establishment of the Old Town District. Three Sisters in a roof sign, though. On the wall, yeah. The only roof signs that I'm aware of would be this one, Mander, and the attorney's office. Those are not.
Other comments, questions, or we can have a motion?
Do we know how large this sign is?
16 by 2? 32 square feet?
Yeah. 18 by 5. Is this an item that's, we're approving or we're recommending, Mr. Chair?
We are recommending to our friends on council.
I have no problem recommending this motion.
No. And I assume the reason that it's 16 by 2 is just to cover up the old existing, what's already there? We're just gonna attach to that right now?
Would you like me to
Mario,
read?
I sensed you want to make a motion, Mario.
Motion to recommend, Mr. Chair. Gigi's House for approval of a creative sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinance, Chapter 98, zoning, Article 3, District Regulations, Section 9872, Old Town Helotes Special District, subsection, sign regulations for a boutique and venue located at 14405 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas 78023.
As submitted? As submitted, yes?
Is that,
No,
yes.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff, all right, so discussion on approving it as submitted. Mario, Jeff, or anyone?
As submitted, it's submitted as a non-illuminated sign.
Correct,
Yeah, it doesn't mention lights here at all.
correct.
So they would have to stick with that.
Anything else? I would add that, again, this is recommended to council, and I know council will do its due diligence on whether the lighting is appropriate or not, and they'll make that decision, and as they should, you want to ensure consistency throughout the district. But the sign itself is not illuminated, and so that's not part of this motion. So the motion is to recommend approval on a request by Gigi's House of a creative sign pursuant to 9872G Old Town Helotes Special District sign regulations for a boutique and venue at 14405 Bandera Road. All in favor of the motion, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain. I
Abstained?
missed the discussion.
There you go.
I missed the discussion.
It's all right. So we've got a motion being approved, and we'll go to council on May the 11th. Thank you for sticking around. We have one more item tonight, which is discussion of Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Article 5, Section 43. That's sign classifications, permit, residential subdivision entry signs, and associated tower, column, pillar, and/or spire elements either attached to or separated from the main residential entry sign. I'll turn this to our city administrator. And this, I should point out to folks, is a discussion item for right now, not an action item.
Yes, and I actually, unless the commission desires, I wasn't planning on spending too much time here, but I did want to introduce an item and perhaps have the commission think about it over the next month and then address it at the subsequent meeting.
Sure.
Essentially, if you recall, we had the Brycewood sign that had the tower element that went to, I believe the commission recommended denial of the tower element. It went to city council, and the city attorney ruled that because it was not physically attached to the residential subdivision sign, that it was exempt from our code. I took it upon myself to place this on the agenda to see whether or not the commission wished to pursue reviewing the ordinance and making recommendations to council on essentially fixing the loophole, if you will. I did include within your packets the 66-43, which is the residential subdivision entry signage provisions. Of specific note within those provisions, which the commission talked about exclusively with regard to tower structures, was the size of the entire square footage of both the tower plus the single-family residential sign, the height being no taller than 8 feet. So those are the applicable provisions here, which seem to be getting us into discussion and perhaps disagreement on those provisions. The other thing that I included within your packet was Article 9, the definitions section within 66. It's my opinion that this quote-unquote loophole can be closed through a better definition of sign structure. Currently, sign structure means a cabinet, frame, support pole, or brackets, base, or any other material that supports, elevates, or encases a sign. We could probably do a better job at making sure that we include tower or spire elements in that definition. The other one is the surface area of a sign means the total surface. I remember several years ago, it would have been in 2011, 2012, when the commission completely revised the sign code, that we amended the surface area definition to surface area of a sign means the total surface. We could probably amend that to say surface area of a sign means the total surface, including the sign structure, to make that a little tighter, but that still would not catch the independent towers that are surrounding a residential subdivision entry sign. So I don't have any options for you tonight. I would like y'all, unless y'all wish to discuss it tonight, to include this on a subsequent agenda item, and then actually get into wordsmithing this thing going forward.
Mr. Chairman? No, just throwing this out there. Would it be better if we added a line for monuments? Would you call those towers monuments? They're not attached to the sign? Or what would be the proper definition of something like that?
Well, I actually did the whole synonym search on what a tower actually is called, which is why the agenda item is so broad to include tower, column, pillar, and/or spire elements.
Not obulus? Obulus was not in there?
It actually was, but I thought that would be a little too ridiculous. And so, yes, all of these are synonyms of what essentially a tower are. But you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, I was just
as
so,
long as-
we don't call it this and they say, well, no, it's one of these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some people in council would disagree with me, but now that the item is over with, I can speak freely. I think a tower or a monument that's within 5 feet of a residential subdivision entry sign is a part of the residential subdivision entry sign. You wouldn't have the tower there but for the residential sign. So I think it does need to be addressed. Otherwise, I would fear that there would be a rampant use of towers around town to alert people as they were traveling by. Again, that's my opinion. Council may disagree with me, but
Well, and also, is there advertisement or is there on the tower?
well, clearly, if there was advertisement on the tower, it would be considered a sign. The issue here was it didn't have advertisement on it, and it wasn't connected by a wall to the sign itself. I think there's been some discussion as to whether it's attached by a foundation or whatnot, but essentially, it wasn't attached to the wall. by a wall structure to the sign. So, again, I think it needs to be addressed. I don't have the answers for you tonight, but I wanted to make sure that the commission wanted to pursue something like this before we spent time on it, before the next commission meeting.
I would point out there is a designation in there for something called fine art, which perhaps is a broad enough category, but I think I think the commission would be certainly open to discussing this. Our practice in the past has been to ask staff to perhaps canvass some surrounding areas to see how they deal with similar issues, if at all.
Just as a cautionary tale, I work at 1604 in Hebner, and there's a development there. It's near there's a new grammar school there at the intersection of Hebner and 1604. There is a monument with no sign, and I mean, hand to God, the thing's 100 feet tall. It's huge. You can see it from 281. And again, no advertisement, but I mean, it's very clear that's the intent, is, it's advertising. It's when, they want to get traffic into their division. They say, hey, look for the giant tower. I mean, that's, you can just envision their marketing people, when they're taking calls.
Right.
That's what they're going after. And that case that you referenced was, that was what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, hey, they wanted the biggest thing in the area so that it is very clear when people are driving down that street, hey, this is what we're trying to direct you to our place
Right.
of business.
I think it would be useful to see how some of our neighbors deal with this, and maybe I don't mean San Antonio as much as, Chavano or some of the others. But if I recall right as well, Rick, this group that did this sign installed it without a permit.
Yes.
So I think part of the problem that frustrated this body was we dealt with folks who basically abused the process. And it wasn't only the tower, which I think, as the attorney pointed out, you could have legitimate disagreement about what it is and so forth. But they had no intent of complying, and I think that's what angered us. And I'll speak for myself that the disappointment that it was allowed to continue through doesn't sufficiently account for the fact that they just essentially ignored our policies, ignored our rules. That was inappropriate and unfair. That doesn't mean we don't still also have to address the issue, because there is this loophole, or whatever you want to call it, exception that allowed for that to happen. But I think we need to have council's backing on this type of thing, and I know council isn't of one mind on this, on signage, but if we have a sign ordinance and a sign policy and we want it to be enforced both in letter and spirit, then we ought to enforce it in letter and spirit, and that includes permitting and the related issues. So I think, unless somebody objects, I think we would welcome talking about this further to try to capture this as best we can, so that we don't have situations like Jason just outlined, where people could put up the big thing and just say, drive for the big tower and you'll find us.
I don't muddy the waters, but it just, an item came up tonight about pole sign, and I think there's been, if we're talking about a discussion about maybe tightening up some of the definitions of this code, that pole sign may be one we want to take a little stab at too, because I think that's come before us a few times, and it's been, maybe a little misunderstood exactly what that means.
Are you talking specifically about the structure with two poles on either side?
Yeah, I think
Which
there's
I would
been
call
some, it does say, it seems to nearly say a single pole, but doesn't quite say it, to my mind. And I think that we've looked at some two-pole signs and called them pole signs in previous discussions.
Paul, just skimming the definitions, and I agree, Jason, that's an excellent point. Pole sign is a type of freestanding sign.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, those terms are easily misunderstood. Flag, I think you mentioned flag, like flagpole, for example, is a pole sign, but I don't think that's a type we typically see. We typically see smaller, two-poled structures, So this will come back, and if there's any models we can look at, or and maybe it's appropriate for the attorney to provide us with a little feedback as well, if he actually studied the issue as it related to Brycewood, I believe it was.
Talking about these topics without
swaying you, but I'd like to ask you to consider adding something to the discussion for your own benefit as you move forward, because while this whole issue came up under the sign ordinance, really, if you only define it as a sign, then you limit yourself, and you probably want to also bring in the idea of other structures. Because if you start to say anything within 5 feet or within the same foundation, you can still force yourself into loopholes, and there's nothing that says that you won't find that the company's gonna put in, some 30-foot tower at the end, or they want to start putting all these wonderful monuments on top of their fence posts. In fact, the gentleman who went to council and came back and he said, look, Iron Horse Canyon has this 40-foot tall horse. Well, is that a sign? It's a structure. But if you limit this discussion to what you may or may not permit as a sign, then they say, well, there's no sign, it's a structure. I'm gonna put a statue at the entrance to my place. So you wanna think, and I know you can start calling it creative art, but they're all actually structures, and you want to try to define that. If you go down, I know it's not in Helotes, if you go down 471 or Culebra Road, just past Galm Road, there's a new neighborhood down there that has a monstrous water park with a 30 to 40-foot tower with slides and everything else. If we don't look at structures, we won't regulate any of that should someone else decide to put that here. So I would just add that as staff does research to see if there's more a definition of regulating structures in addition to maybe thinking about them only as signs. Because I think if you limit it to a sign aspect of it, then you have to say, well, they're gonna just look for another loophole somewhere. And that's essentially kind of what this was. It was an accidental loophole. And I just think that if you look at a structure part, it might broaden the scope of how you define what a developer can build. Thank you.
I would simply ask, appreciate the comment, but you might recall that 18 months or so ago, we spent a good long while talking about window signs. And we did not have much backing from council on that, I would say, and that didn't go anywhere. And so I think that it would be useful for the commission to either have the opportunity that this is conveyed, I guess as our liaisons, to convey this to council, but also to get council's sense that they would be supportive of this type of adjustment. Because nobody wants to, spend a lot of time and effort on doing something and trying to persuade if there's absolutely no interest in that at the council level. Again, that's still not to say that there's some element of this, I think that would be welcome, but as Councilman rightly points out, that you could talk about all different types of structures, statues, buildings, accessories, et cetera. How much will is there going to be in council to support that type of endeavor? So, sort of a combination of the two. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion?
Ron is ready to make a motion. He's very anxious. Go ahead, Ron.
May we adjourn?
Is there a second to adjourn?
Yes.
All in favor of adjourning, signal aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 8:40. Thanks,
You've been
everybody.
twisting and turning, waiting to make that